I hope you're doing well. Hello, everybody. Ho, 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 says Santa Claus in the middle of August. But nonetheless, I'm glad you're joining me today, you guys. I thought while you're popping in, many of you will be popping in, go ahead and say hello. We love seeing where you're from, so put those comments in. But while you're coming in today, I just want to let you know what's going on with us for the last few days. Hugo and Susan and we went to Indianapolis for DCI, Drum Corps International. We cheer for the Blue Coats, but truly we cheer for all the corps because it is such an amazing activity. It is a thrill to be there. We were there for all 3 days for the preliminaries, for the semifinals on Friday, and for the finals on Sunday. And Blue Coats were last year's world champions. They just got nudged out by Boston this year. So Blue Coats were the silver medalists. Boston Crusaders took first place and their first ever world championship in an 85-year drum corps history. So there's a lot of people pretty excited about Boston. It is so thrilling to just see these kids work so hard. Now, our Blue Coats this year, they looked like this. This was their uniforms. We call them costumes pretty much nowadays, but they had this amazing concept, and they're like lab coats, and they all wore glasses, so they looked very scientific. The name of their show was The Observer Effect, and so it's seeing things from different perspectives, really. Just such a powerful, intricate, wonderful show. We enjoyed it immensely. Just so much color, so much fun. And another corps that I really, really love is Phantom Regiment. And their show this year was so emotional. It was, I can't even quite describe it to you, but it had like white drapes all through the show. They were wearing white. Very poignant show. Beautiful. But another corps that came in 10th this year is the Troopers. And the Troopers are out of Casper, Wyoming. And they are kind of America's heartthrob of a corps because they just bring such a wonderful spirit. And this year, I know I'm going to get a little of these facts wrong, but this year the Troopers were doing part 3 of a 3-year trilogy. So, and that's a year, 2 years ago, and this year. So 3 years doing a trilogy. This one was called The Final Sunset. And the director that conceived this trilogy passed away recently. And so this final trilogy, The Final Sunset, the main cavalryman or whatever, dies in this scene. There's a casket involved. I mean, it sounds very morbid, but actually it's extremely inspiring. And so Casper Troopers have already announced their next year's show, which is going to be, sorry, not The Final Sunset, it's going to be Into the Darkness. So Into the Darkness is going to be coming up for next year for them. And anyway, all that's just to say we're kind of DCI nuts. And I love the activity and I love watching it all. So that was our thing. You guys, if you're finding us now, whenever you're finding this, I want you to know this is part 3 of Odette's journey. So part 1 and part 2 have already been posted. They're live and available for you anytime. They're recorded live, and they are at thequiltshow.com. So go to watch at thequiltshow.com and find classrooms and look for my name and look for Odette's journey. This is part 3 of 4, and the next one will be live next Monday. And next Monday, I will be coming to you from Tennessee, where I will then be with some family. And then Hugo and I are driving up to Louisville, Kentucky, where I will rendezvous with Alex. And we will then spend about another week, 8-9 days, taping new episodes of The Quilt Show for thequiltshow.com. You can see that right there. If you're not a member, we would love to have you join us. All right. Now, if you're just joining us, there's 2 colorways. This is the Odette's quilt, the Odette Journey quilt. I'm building it in the blue, but both of those kits are available online at thequiltshow.com. And there's a ruler set that you might want to drop into your cart that's going to be helpful. I showed cutting traditional, but Kay England, who created this, is showing how to do that with the ruler set. And then also, I'm going to be teaching next Monday how I do my quilting, marking intricate designs and doing free motion quilting. You guys, you will want Ricky Tim's Stable Stuff Poly for that. So if you haven't got it already, go to thequiltshow.com, go to the store, online shop, and get Ricky Tim's Stable Stuff Poly. I have a feeling that if you've not experienced this yet, once you do, it will change everything. So next week is a big week where I will be quilting this. As you can see, I have finished my quilt behind us there. The one that I've been working on, it's all done. And today I'm going to be sharing with you the videos that I did to get through this to the final steps of quilting. So up until now, episode 1 was cutting, episode 2 was doing just making the block, and now today it's all about coming in and joining this together with the sashing strips, the setting cornerstones, the triangles, and so forth. So I'm going to get started by giving you a little overview first of what to do next once you've got your borders made, once you've got your blocks made, and then we're going to start doing the setting triangles. So take a look at this. Many of you will have a print that's directional. Now, I don't have the kit that has tulle that has a scene with trees growing up, or, the scene is so forth, but I found a fabric. These have wolves. Those wolves don't need to be upside down and sideways. So the way you're going to cut this is by using the measurements that are in the handout, but you cut a large square. By the way, I'm doing this in miniature right now for you, just so that you can see everything in one camera shot. But when you end up cutting your large square, these are quarter square triangles, they will be cut from corner to corner, and then you're going to have 2 squares. So see how these, no matter where I put them now, I don't want to put this one down here, but I will have one at the top, 2 on the sides, 1 at the bottom. I'll show you that in a minute, so hang on to that thought. And we've got 2 squares for the corners, and we need to cut one of them slanting down to the right. So to the right. The other one is slanting down to the left. And so no matter whether you're using a non-directional fabric or a directional fabric, you might as well just go ahead and go with this format. And I've got 5 paper miniature blocks that are going to be set with sashing, but let's just go ahead and set them with imaginary sashing. I'll come up just a little bit. It's going to be a little tight, but I think that you'll understand. Now we've got these. All right, so there's the wolf. He is standing up this way, so he's going to go at the bottom. This wolf, all right, he is standing up this way, so he's going to go at the top. These wolves, this one, all right, positioned that way. It's going to go on this side. This one positioned goes on this side. Yay. Now I've got a wolf standing up like this. It's going to go all the way over here on this side. This wolf is the opposite of that one. So it goes here. These are the 2 that were cut out. They're going on opposite sides. And then your other slant, they were cut out here. So they're going to go on the opposite sides. So that's the biggest, most important thing I can share with you. The rest of this I'm going to show you in doing this sort of digitally, but we're going to cut the sashing and the little cornerstones. So this is my 21-inch square. Because these are cut oversized, if you'll give yourself a little finger press at the center, then whenever you open this up, you know where the center is. You see the crease. You put your ruler on right on the 90-degree angle right at that crease and simply cut. Let's go up a little bit more. Perfectly 90 degrees. Same thing on this one. And that's going to give me my 4 setting triangles. And you can see how that's going to move forward. So you'll cut your 12-inch. Remember, you've got a handout that came with the book if you bought this from thequiltshow.com, because this is our project that Kay England has created. So this gives us those measurements for what I just taught you here on the project. So the next thing I need to do is I'm just going to do a real quick check to make sure I've got what I want to show you. So just bear with me for a second. I know sometimes I can be discombobulated, but today I'm feeling extra discombobulated. So I don't want that. I don't want that. Oh my gosh, I can't see that. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. You know what that's all about. So I want to see this video. All right. So we now need to do our cornerstones. I'm pretty certain I've got that video. Let me just double check here. Nope, I've got that video. Maybe I stopped it too soon. I taught you in my video how to do. The reason I'm surprised is because I wanted to do the cornerstones and sashing strips, which you can cut. But I also cut. I really need to take just a second to sort this out in my brain, and I apologize. I looked at this before we started, and somehow I'm feeling like this is not doing what I want it to do. Come on, I've got so many windows open I can't even see what I need to see. Bear with me, you guys. Yeah. All right, so that video does stop there, and I'm going to have to just go. I'm embarrassed, but I don't have cutting out the sashing strips. But I want to talk about those sashing strips, okay? The instructions say to cut them 1 inch by 12.5 for your sashing. You'll do 16 of those, and you'll cut your cornerstones at 1 inch square. I altered this pattern, and you can do that too if you wish. I altered it to make my sashings 3/4 of an inch wide, so I cut 1 1/4 inch by 12.5 inch rectangles, and I cut 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 inch squares. I did this because I know that the setting triangles on the outside are larger, overcut, and I just wanted a little heftier sashing. You don't have to do that. I'm mostly doing this to let you know you can always change a pattern a little bit. And in this particular case, because we've overcut the size of these setting triangles, then I've gone with a slightly larger sashing and cornerstones. So that's the big message that I had to share with you about that. Now, you've got everything cut out. You've got your 4/4 square triangles. You've got your 4/2 square triangles. And the reason we cut them the way we did, according to Kay, was specifically because of a directional print. If you don't have a directional print, those final 2 cuts that I did, one from the bottom right and one down to the bottom left, that doesn't matter. But if you do have a directional print, that is something that will matter for you. Okay? I apologize for being a little space-brained right there. So now I'm going to show you how then we start then taking all of these elements and assembling them together. So now for the assembly, you're going to start with, I like to do this from a bottom left to upper right diagonal. You can see there's 3 blocks. You can sew starting with a sashing strip, a block, a sashing strip, a block, a sashing strip, a block, and then a sashing strip. You're going to make a strip that has a cornerstone, a sashing strip, a cornerstone, a sashing strip, a cornerstone, a sashing strip, and a cornerstone. you'll actually make two of those, one that's going to go on the upper left of this unit and the other that's going to go on the bottom right of this unit. And the last thing you'll do here now is center those corner triangles and join those to the block. They will be oversized at this point, and we can trim them off later. Then you're going to put a sashing on one side of the block and a sashing on the opposite side of the block. Then create a cornerstone, a sashing, and a cornerstone, and you'll put that on the bottom right corner of the block. This is a good time to add that corner half square triangle. Trim off those points and now add the larger quarter square triangles, making sure the right angle is at the interior of the quilt, and sew that on. Knowing that when you sew this on, it's going to extend past. It's going to go past. The next unit is exactly like the one we just made. You're going to put a sashing on opposite sides of your block. You're then going to make a sashing strip that is a cornerstone, sashing strip, cornerstone. Put that onto your block. Add that half square triangle to the corner, and then add both of the larger quarter square triangles onto the unit. You're going to sew the upper big triangle to the center portion and the bottom triangle to the center portion, and you are ready now to make sure that you've got a 1/4 inch from all of those cornerstones, and it's time to put on borders. So I think that for most of you, this is going to make sense. It's really pretty easy to figure that out. And in the handout, if you're just looking at the handout, you'll see the red lines that Kay has positioned on here, showing that you've got this full big bottom triangle, the big middle section coming, I can do this, I really can. This big middle section and then this upper section. So this is kind of a piecing diagram. You'll want to start matching seams. Those cornerstones need to match and all of that. Pin wherever you need to. I'm a finger pinner, so that's my way of doing that. I'm curious if there's any questions at this point, because I'm about to go into working on the borders. I want to also tell you, when it comes to those borders, this next bit is about to be pretty intense. The measurements that are here, you can do these, all right? I didn't. And I didn't for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted it to be different. And two, I want you to know you can change a pattern. So you can follow these exact. In the very first video, I talked about that and I cut mine differently. So I'm going to use my measurements. You're going to see how I do the math to get this quilt perfectly square. When you've got that quilt done, the quilt top done minus the borders, it is ragged because everything was cut oversized. And you're going to see how I trim it to get it the right size and add those borders. This might be a portion of the video that you pause and watch and pause and watch and pause and watch once you've watched through it with me the first time. So here is what we're about to do. When you need to extend your border strips, I like to do them by sewing on the diagonal. I do this by placing them right sides together. So this one is right sides up, even though it's solid. It is pointing right this direction, pointing to the right. This one is going to come up right sides down. You can position it anywhere, but get the most mileage out of it. You can just have a little crisscrossing section, meaning there's going to be a V here, there's going to be a V here, and I've got them at a right angle. Now, when I bring this into the machine, I'm going to set that needle right in that V of those two strips, begin to sew, and now I'm holding this well secured so that it's not shifting on me. But I now want to, I remember I've got my little notepad. This just helps me keep things straight. As long as I keep the V right there as I sew this. See how I'm following right there on the V. Sorry to be over teaching there on that, but it's really important that you keep that straight. And then when you bring that out, you've got right sides together. go ahead and I like to just trim that off. Approximate 1/4 inch is just fine. You don't have to have a 1/4 inch. I like to press those open. And now you've extended the strips that you need for your borders. You would do that anytime that you need to extend to a longer strip. For trimming these oversized triangles off, I am going to place my ruler on the 1/4 inch mark past the point, on the 1/4 inch mark past this point, and you can see this was oversized more than these, but I'm going to trim all that off. Make sure all of this is aligned at these 2 points, and I'm just going to cut. So don't let that ruler slip. This is a critical place to make sure that you're holding securely. But now that I'm here, right at this spot, I'm going to leave my rotary cutter where it is. Do not pick it up. Slide against the blade. Make sure that this stays parallel with what you've already done. And now you can finish that cut. All right. Now, to finish this, I'm just going to place my ruler along this straight edge. I don't have much left to cut. And then I know that if I've got this parallel, the rest of this will be just fine. Now, I have measured all of my sides, and they basically all averaged 37¼ inches. Maybe fudging a little bit one way or the other, but 37¼ is what I was getting. But on this end, this was right at 37½. Not quite there, but what I did is I just shaved at a slight angle. We're not going to see this bend. It's just too slight. But now I know that all of my sides are 37¼ and that's the length that I will cut my strips for the first pieces of the border, left and right. All right, remember you only need 2 37¼ This is my math, okay? But I needed 2 of these because the next 2 sides are going to be longer. So I'm going to pin these. I am not a pinner. And I mean that. I do pin when it's necessary. And this is one of those necessary times. I want to make sure that the starting of this, where I start sewing and where I finish sewing, I want this strip to be put on just as it should be. So I want to get this perfectly aligned at the end as well. Put a pin in that. And then I'm going to, right here on the table, just give it a little tug. Just make sure everything is laying down nice. And once I've done that little tug, I'm now going to put a pin in the center. And you can do as many as you want. I probably will do one more here, and sew this strip on so that I know I've got every side the way I want it. When I finish sewing this, I will do the exact same thing with this strip on the opposite side of the quilt. All right, I'm finally ready to talk about math. Your math may be different because your first number may be 1/4 inch either way because of just the seams that you have in your quilt. But as I said, my body of my quilt was 37¼ When I sew the 1/4 inch seam, that ends up being 36¾ for the distance of the finished quilt on the width of what I'm doing right now. So how long do I cut my next 2 borders? Well, the ones that I cut, these strips, are meant to finish 3/4 inch. So they were cut 1 1/4 inch wide. I have sewn a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I've lost 1/4 inch, leaving on this edge, leaving 1 inch. All right. Now, the same thing. I have my other side, that is 1 1/4 minus the 1/4. What I have left remaining that I see is 1 inch. So 36¾ plus 1 inch plus 1 inch, 2 inches, that is a total of 38¾ inches. And you can do this formula every time as long as you know what your size is. Whatever your size of your border is, when you've put them on two sides, subtract a quarter, and then whatever is remaining, that includes the seam allowance that's going to be happening, but you'll be able to do the math to continue cutting the lengths of your border so that they are truly accurate. So now let's go on to the second border. We've just finished our first round at 38 3/4 inch. So I will cut 2 strips of whatever my next strip is, 2 at 38 3/4 inch. This matches, all right? I'll sew those 2 on. I like to go left, right, top, bottom, left, right, top, bottom, left, right, top, bottom. You do it as you wish, but nonetheless, I'm gonna put the first 2 on. Now, what is the size of the next 2 strips because the quilt just got bigger? 38 3/4 inch finishes at 38 1/4. My new border, the one I'm adding, is 1.5 inches wide. So minus 1/4 inch for one of those sides, and that becomes 1 1/4 inch for that side. Again, the opposite side, it's cut 1.5. When I sewed it on, I lost 1/4 inch. So what is remaining is 1 1/4 inch, which those 2 together is 2.5 inches. So I take this measurement, the finished measurement, I add 2.5 inches, and my next 2 longer strips of border 2 will be 40 3/4 inches. All right, so we just finished with 40 3/4 inches on that second border. I need to cut 2 of these new borders. They're skinny, but I will cut 2 at the same number, 40 3/4. So now I'm going to sew those left and right. That now is 40 3/4. That finishes at 40 1/4. That's important. You need to take this new number, right? This is unfinished. That's what you're cutting. It becomes finished at this number, 1/2 inch less. Now, this strip is 1 inch. So 1 inch minus 1/4, because I've already sewn on 1/4 inch, is 3/4 inch. Do it to the other side, 3/4 inch. That's 1.5 inches, right? So take this number, this finished size, 40 1/4 plus 1.5, and my next strip will be, once I've cut 2 of these that are 40 3/4, left and right, my top and bottom will be 41 3/4 inch. So if any of this is being confusing, just rewind, watch. I think it will begin to make perfect sense. All right, we're now down to the final border, and this border in our pattern has larger, wider borders, but it's finishing with a cornerstone of a half square triangle. So in this case, my last border was 40 3/4 inches. So now, whatever this is, I cut 4 inches. I believe the pattern said 3 or 3.5, but I cut 4. I wanted it bigger. So my finished border is going to be 3.5 because I cut 4. So I'm going to cut this 4-inch strip into 40 3/4 times 4 of those. I don't need to add extra this time because they're all going to have this cornerstone. So these are being cut at 40 3/4 based on all the math that I have done through the course of the border. And because my cornerstone is going to finish at 3.5, 3 1/2, we all know that you need to add 7/8 to that number to get 2 squares that you cut in half to create your half square triangle. So 3.5 plus 7 1/8 ends up being 4 3/8 inch. That's the size of squares that I will cut. I will cut my squares on the diagonal to yield my half square triangles for these corner units. All right, you guys. So now that's how that quilt comes together. You will put the left, the right on with your final border. Then you're going to do cornerstone, border, cornerstone, set that on top, repeat that at the bottom. Cornerstone, border, cornerstone, sew it along the bottom, matching those cornerstone intersections. It's really going to be easy. It's fun. This quilt, I know we're spending some time in letting you have days and homework and so forth. This quilt honestly could go together in a day, maybe 2 days if you're slow, right? And it's going to go well. One of the things that I learned, and I actually learned this from Sue Garman, the late great Sue Garman. She is very meticulous about the ending of a quilt with cutting your borders to size. It's easy to just take a strip and just sew it on, but fabric stretches and it gives, and part of it might be cross grain and part of it might be long lengthwise, and you just sew it on and cut it off, but there can be some stretching there. By taking time to do the math and cutting your borders to size, then when you sew it on, you pin it at the beginning, you pin it at the end, you ease it together, do the pinning to make sure it's all in place. Then the quilt really stays the size it needs to be as you're building those borders. That is something, it took me years to really get that, because I was like, oh, I'm just going to sew a border on, sew another one on. And then the quilt isn't square. By doing this, you know your measurements on that final quilt are what they are, and it ends up being really, really good. So Kathy, thank you for that comment. I love the way you explained the math to the math phobics. I'm not a math guy either. As a matter of fact, so many of my quilts are not done with even 1/4 inch seams and templates and all of that. This has been actually a fun project for me to rehone some of my traditional skills. But I just wanted to figure that out. And so whatever measurement you start with, like I started with, I think 37 1/4, whatever number you start with, if you just follow the formula that I showed and take time, it doesn't hurt to double check it before you cut 4, right? If you cut 1, you can still, so piece it back together if you needed to, doing the method that I showed you. But you'll get these quilts really, really square and straight. I'm just giving a little time to see if there's any other questions popping in. I'm kind of glad today's not an hour. The last 2 have been kind of long and intense. We are going to have a great time on next Monday, the final episode of Odette's Journey. And we're going to get to hear from Gail Hillert a little bit and talking a little bit about quilting in a hoop. For those of you that use your embroidery and your embroidery hoops, OESD has the designs in your book. Let me see if I can get there. The very back page, you'll see the designs that I'm going to be doing and how they fit into the block. And these are available from OESD, Oklahoma, I don't remember, the OE Embroidery S Software and Design. I don't remember. OESD, you guys. Go there and you can get both the embroidery set and you can buy individual long arm designs. If you're a long armor and you want to digitize any of these designs that I have, they are available. I believe they're individual. I don't think they're in a set. But that's at OESD. But what I'm going to be doing with you guys, because most of you will be doing this yourself, perhaps on a domestic machine. The size of this quilt is very friendly because it's like 48, 50 inches, depending on how you do your borders. It's going to be really easy to do. And I'm going to show you how I mark my quilt and practice quilting at the same time and making your marking so clear and concise that it's going to be beautiful when it's done. And that's kind of the coup d'etat. This is the big finale, grand finale that's coming up for this on Monday next week. So I see that the designs are being popped into the comments. So if you want to get a quick link, just go down into the comment section and look for those links that we've got. We also have the links for the Ricky Tim Stable Stuff Poly. That's kind of a requirement. For those of you that are abroad, this is a hard one. The Ricky Tim Stable Stuff Poly is a It doesn't dissolve, but it's a polyester-based stabilizer, so it can stay in your quilt, forever, because it's going to soften. You don't want to leave paper in your quilt, but I think that you'll enjoy seeing this process. And if you can order some and get it to you international, that'd be great. But I really love this product. So we're going to talk about that next Monday. All right. Anything else that you want to say? It's been great seeing you guys. Blue coats. That's my team. And I will be seeing you next week from Tennessee because I'll be visiting family. And then we're going from Tennessee to Louisville, Kentucky, where I will be meeting up with Alex and the crew and the team and everybody involved in producing new episodes of The Quilt Show just for you. You guys, I don't even know. We're lost. There's over 450 episodes in the can right now. So if you're a subscribing member, you've got access to all of those shows like Netflix for quilters. We want you to be a part of our family. It is a wonderful, wonderful group. So, and it's extremely reasonable. Go to thequiltshow.com and check that out. Okay. Jay, thank you so much. Great. Melanie, Rhonda, all you guys, it's always great to see you. We've got so many international friends, and I'm really grateful for it. So I'm going to say goodbye. Till next time, I will see you in a week for number 4 of 4, and we will get to business on quilting these quilts. All right. Cheers.